Okay, so I've had a request to make a Genshin Impact pull value tier list. This is pre-Natlan, right? So Natlan will come out in a week or two, I believe. And that'll obviously change the meta. I don't know exactly what's going to happen in combat, but I do know the new characters have their own mechanics. And it's yet to be seen not only how strong that is, but how it impacts other characters. So we're going to do best guess based on the information we have. Now, instead of really being able to put a straight up ranking, every account is different. So a character that could be really strong on your account might not fit as well into someone else's others, or could be completely redundant to the characters they already have built. Certain characters fit kind of in the same role or the same element, and in those cases, then you really only need one of them. They get redundant. So we're setting out here with 8 different categories. First one, these are going to be great pulls. These are going to be characters that are both strong and flexible, meaning that they have a lot of functionality on their own and they can fit into a lot of teams or enable teams to even exist. These are units that are probably good for just about anybody's account. Second category we're going to have is we have the hyper carries. Now, hyper carries, if you've seen my other videos, these are units that require you to build a team around them, right? And so when you pull one of these units, you're kind of committed to pulling other units or at least building other units to support them. They are not that functional on their own, and that's okay because they can be very, very powerful. That said, if you don't want to build a hypercarry team, if you have very limited resources, or if you already have a hypercarry in that situation, then their pull values goes down very significantly. So to say that my classic example is Hu Tao. Should you pull Hu Tao? Who do you have built? What other teams are you using? Did you pull Arlecchino? Are you willing to make the investment a Hu Tao team requires, which is quite significant. Without the answers to those questions, I can't recommend or not recommend her, right? That's because every account and every player is different. Thirdly, we have specialists. These are units that are strong in their area, but not viable outside of their area. I would say the person I think of as specialist is Shenhe, who is really great for supporting Ayaka, not great for much else. So it's kind of like, do you need what they provide? In that case, it's a good pull. If you don't need them, you're kind of wasting your primos. Here, because Natlan's coming out, there are a set of units that are just simply undefined. We don't know their place in the meta yet. And that's because maybe we don't know how their mechanics work. We don't know their exact numbers. That matters. Or in the case of Emily, when we get to her teams feel incomplete. And so my thought is I don't know how to rank her yet. It reminds me kind of like a 5-star Kuki Shinobu situation where when she came out, she was like not that great. And turns out she's really good. Category 5, these are just excellent units. They're good. They work. It's probably worth building them. They're not hyper carries, but they're also not S tier, right? These team units can really help round out your roster. We have great units like Sucrose or Fischl from 1.0. Really, really good units. I use them all the time. There's a bunch of other things that fit in this category. I would say that your average Genshin 5-star is probably an excellent unit. Genshin really tries to not power creep too hard, right? So, unless someone really introduces a new feature or is kind of a pinnacle of their specific playstyle, they're going to be excellent units, meaning you can pull for them. They'll be completely viable. They'll work fine in all the game modes. But they're not going to necessarily like change or push the meta. Down here in barely viable, these are units that, yeah, you can use them. Oh, wait. I skipped Power Crept. Power Crept units are simple to explain. They are units where there are just straight up better options that exist. Some of the older units go in here. And they're not quite at the same power level as an excellent unit. For example, if we look at, say, the difference between Chlorind and Kaching, I don't think the power difference is that much. So Kaching and Chlorine could both still be excellent. But if you look at something like a Razor, for example, there's just better versions of him. You could have D-Luke, you could have Eula. There's any number of Electro DPS if you wanted the Electro part. He's just power crap. Barely viable are units that are just that. Like, you can use them, but there's almost always a better option. Not all of these are bad units. Some of them might have situations. I guess to me, like, Sayu goes in here. She's a full party animal healer, which is good and has its place. Gina is better. Her power level is actually pretty low, but again, I really, really like playing Sayu. I love how she gets around the map. She's good for farming. In that case, it's fine. But she doesn't have any really strong teams. Layla might be in that category. Again, Ice Shielder does a little damage, totally fine. No decent teams. Moving on to the basically useless category, these are units that you just can't justify building. They are just weak. And there's a handful of them, but most units in Genshin are totally viable. You can play them, you can use them. The Hoyoverse is not this case where their power band is not that large, though what I would say is they probably have a handful of units that are a step above everyone else, and those things are going to be great pulls. So let's get going. First, I'm gonna have Aether be all the travel units except Dendro Traveler, and yeah, I mean, I don't think they're terrible. Maybe Hydro Traveler is terrible. I know people have cleared Abyss with the other Travelers, but they're just not that good. You're going to replace them as soon as you can. However, I want to make sure we know that we don't know anything about Pyro Traveler yet. It could be good. It could be useless. I have no idea. Lumine here. This is Dendro Traveler. Dendro Traveler is just good. I think just good. Obviously not the strongest Dendro sub DPS out there, but Dendro Traveler, totally viable in Abyss. Good on, say, like a Nilu team. Good on, Aggravate, Spread, Bloom, Hyper Bloom. They're good. Jean. Jean is a full priority healer. We could put her in Specialist. Because of Farina. I wouldn't go that far. She also provides Viridescent Veneer Shred. Like I said, mainly her uses in Farina teams, but she's also just plain good. You can use her in other teams. You won't be disappointed. I'd say the one issue is that she needs both high attack and energy recharge, which, it's just her ER requirements are very high because you want a high base attack weapon. So you might want to use something like, a Quill of a Favavonia, but then the substat doesn't give you energy recharge. She's good with Festering Desire or Favonia Swords to help with those energy issues, but then you lose out on the attack. Moving on, we have Lisa. Lisa's just power crept, in my thought. If you have a well-built C6 Lisa and you pair her with Dendro Traveler, she can actually do quite a bit of damage. Like, she can be really strong in those situations. She has resistance shred, but the point is that you are probably better off even just running Fischl. Fischl is just a better Electro Sub DPS. So she's kind of been power crept from day one. Nothing against her, though. I still think she's a good unit, but I can't recommend building her. Amber. Amber is barely viable. She's not useless. The problem is her kit is really disjointed. And so that is not great. And that's just because Baron Bunny gets knocked around. At high constellations, she can boost the attack. She has lots and lots of pyro application, but since pyro, typically you want to vape a big hit, the multi-pyro application is not so useful. I would say she's incredible at breaking Hydro Shields if you need that for some reason. But I can't recommend building her. Noelle. Noelle is only viable at C6. And just to clarify, I'm going to treat the 4 stars as if they're C6. You'll probably get them in C6 if you want to use them. Some are better at less. Noelle's only viable at C6. And Noelle Furina team's pretty good. And you can run her with Goro and Yunjin, multi-geo units. Solid, but even so, in that niche, you could run Ito. He'd probably do the same thing, just more damage. Or alternatively, you could run, if you want a Geo Claymore user, you also have Navia, which is a different style of team. And then there are just better teams out there. So, she's definitely power crept at this point. Moving on, we have Barbara. Now, if you're a new player, I think Barbara is great. Very easy to build. And her HP regen in the overworld can be very, very useful. She was helpful to me early on. But right now, from a practical standpoint, she's barely viable. She just doesn't bring enough. Her Hydro application is pitiable. Her damage is low. Her healing is good, but it's also on a very long cooldown, almost 30 seconds. And the water ticks can have you be wet and frozen. So, moving on. Sucrose is she's just a great unit. I'm going to kind of put these in order. I think that Sucrose is excellent. I'd say the only problem she has is Kazuha exists. They're slightly different, however. Sucrose boosts elemental mastery. She can act as a driver. So, for example, her classic team is Sukokomon with Fischl, Kokomi, and Beto. In those cases, she's really quite good. She supports any reaction team with Petch damage. That's Pyro, Electro, Cryo, Hydro damage. Really well. If you're running Bloom, Hyper Bloom kind of thing, she can be supportive there because of her Elemental Mastery boost. She's excellent. That said, in terms of Animo supports, Kazuha is more flexible. So typically people run Kazuha in that slot. But it's not because Sucrose is weak. It's because Kazuha is busted. Right? Another excellent unit here. Fischl is great. I use Fischl all the time. She's incredible. She was good to begin with, especially in like Sukokomon Taser. You could use her with Raiden for like a Pyro Electro Overload team. She was great there. Now, when Dendro came out in 4.0, no, 3.0, she's great in spread teams. She's great in aggravate teams. Like, she's just a great unit. If you have Fischl, which you should probably build her. She's obviously stronger with constellations, but not only does she do that, the fact she's energy positive and takes almost no field time is really nice. So, highly recommended. Mona is power crept. Freeze is not that viable, and you're probably going to want to run Freeze with Kokomi at this point for a number of reasons. Doesn't mean you can't run Mona. Mona's good. She used to be good at nukes, but we now know nuking's not really the way to go. It was just kind of a fun thing people did during 1.x. A lot of her teams have fallen out of the meta or gotten better supports. Moving on. I don't think Kaya has a team. I don't think he's weak. He's a cryo sub DPS. I think the most times you would use that are in a freeze team, in which case you want Shenhe. But his power level is fine. I'm actually going to put him down here because I can't recommend building him right now. But his power level is good. He can do a lot of damage, especially at C6. Short cooldown, energy positive. Probably a good unit. But it's kind of like, I don't know what team to put him in. Maybe that'll change. Something else that is just power crept. D-Luke. He's a pyro DPS. He's a good one. He can be good with Shenyu. Is it Shenyun? Shenye. He can be good in a Shenye team. But, outside of that specialty, and you're not going to pull Shenye just for D-Luke. I don't think so anyway. You just have better options. I think Yan Fei can do more damage than him at C6. Claymore attacks are slower, and his numbers just aren't as big as other Pyro DPS. Razor. Just straight up power crept. I'm gonna do this. If you're a new player, you're a new account, and it's day one, and you have Razor, you should build him and play him. He takes very little investment and does good damage with no support, which is what you're looking for as a new player. That said, by the time your account's fleshed out, there's just so many other stronger DPS. He's physical, which is not that great. He's a 4-star DPS, which always lag behind. Even well-built Razors, there's just better options. Quite honestly, if you build him really well, he's not that bad. I'd say the problem I have with him is his energy issues, but I think that you're just gonna have better options. Now you can't pull 4 stars intentionally, of course. This is also has to do with how you should build. I think it's obvious. Bennett is great. Bennett is just great. Energy positive. Comfortable rotation times. Really huge attack buff, which is wonderful for many teams. And healing and a cleanse. So, powerful role consolidation, stronger with consolations. I do like C6 Penny. It's not an issue right now for any of the teams you would use him in. I think he's excellent. One of my most used characters. If you have Bennett, you use him. I love Ningguang. She's objectively not that good. It's not, well, it's not that her power level is low. It's that her element is Geo. So she's the weakest element. And catalysts typically aren't great as main DPSs. No, we're going to put her in. She was power crept on day 1. I think she is viable. Ningguang teams, especially if she's well built, can slap. I like her in the overworld. She clears things efficiently. You can mine ore with her. Finding ore on passive is great. But in Abyss, you're always going to have better options. I have definitely used her on Abyss 11, but I don't think she has the damage output for Abyss 12. So, yeah, she's power cup. Beto, excellent unit. Even in the modern day, I'm still using my Beto. She's still good. Not so much on Abyss 12, really, but I think... what have I been using her for? Like, with Fischl and then a Dendro driver, you could use her with Tignari or Alhaitham. You could use her in a Taser team. Sukokomon comes to mind, of course. You could also, use her as just like a generic Electro sub DPS. She's great with 2 targets. I think she's just plain good. Her energy recharge means you have to put in quite a bit of investment, and she wants constellations for sure. So her investment requirements are pretty significant. But if you build her, she's good. Kaching. I think Kaching's excellent. She's really an aggravate DPS right now, and she's very, very good at it. I think Florin's probably a little better, but not by a lot. Kaching generates a ton of energy, quick rotation, really fun to play. I really like playing my Kaching. She doesn't have the raw damage output for later, like Abyss 12 floors sometimes, but for every other content in the game, she's great. Xiangling. Xiangling has a high investment floor. Is that she needs a lot of resources to be good. And you probably have to pair her with Benny and or with Raiden because she's very energy hungry. The result is a mountain of damage. I did Abyss yesterday. Xiangling was wrecking. Like, she is so powerful. I think she's just an amazing, amazing unit. Totally build her if you have her. Do understand she requires a lot of resources. Unlike these newer Dendro units where you can build 1 or 2 stats, fine. Xiangling, you want crit stats, you want elemental mastery, you want attack, and you want ER. So her ceiling is very, very high, but her floor is pretty high too. Chongyun as power creep, he's not that great. He wasn't a national team, was good there before we got, Raiden, which was, 2.1, 2.2. Um, you almost always have a better option. I think his specialty now, for me, is taking down Electro Herald shields. He is great at that. But yeah, just not enough damage, not enough utility. There's not really a great reason to use him. Next, Xingqiu. Xingqiu is amazing. Great off-field hydro application. Really good damage. Some healing, some resistance to interruption, which is important. He is also resource intensive. The reason why people use a sacrificial sword on him is he's energy hungry. Now, granted, if your Xingqiu's really well invested and you have good ER relics, you can bring in something else. I'm using a Primordial Jade Cutter on him. It's great, but it required a long time to get there. That said, on my account, since I've been running Genshin for 4 years now, he is my kind of most used character in Abyss. He is just amazing. I'd recommend building him to anyone. Chi-Chi, there's just, she has good healing and nothing else. No damage, no energy generation, no elemental application. She just heals. And she either takes a field timing or a lot of energy to do it. You just have way better options. Yeah, she's useless. Sorry, Chi-Chi. Venti. I'm putting Venti in specialist against large groups of enemies and very much in combat events where you have wave after wave. Venti is the best unit in the game. He just dumpsters lots and lots of enemies. Multi-wave, small enemy content. Amazing, amazing unit. The reason he's not higher is that the Abyss meta has long been a boss enemy, and Venti's not good against bosses. So I can't really recommend pulling him, but I also have to recognize his power level in his situation is completely nuts. Okay, moving on. Cleave. Yeah. Why do I have Ito? Klee is power corrupt. We're gonna put her here. Klee has one of the best personalities and characters in the game. I love Klee as a character. The reality is she's hard to play D-Luke. Like, she's not that powerful. Her playstyle is really quite awkward. You have to animation cancel to get enough out of her. She uses a lot of the same supports other players would use. So, yeah, I can't recommend pulling her. TLDR, she was never that great. She was only good in 1.0 because we had no other options. You can always pull her for cute factor, but which I get, but in terms of pull value, Klee's one of the worst pulls I ever made. When I say, I'm not sure I regret her, but like, I don't enjoy using her because of her playstyle, and her power level doesn't justify it. Child, excellent unit. Though I think people aren't pulling him anymore for a number of reasons. If you got him, you should use him. International team is really strong. That's just child vape. And it's always been good. It'll continue to be good. I do think he's pretty resource intensive, if I remember correctly. That said, no reason to pull. I think you have better options to build. But if you're child simp, go for it. He'll be good. Ito. I think he's power corrupt. His situation's not as bad as Please. But for other hyper carry teams, like you need a C2 E2O to match other teams that are good at C0. Geo is a relatively weak element too. When you put that together, not so great. And unless you really want to run mono Geo, you could just pull Navia and run like Pyro Geo or Hydro Geo or something like that. Navia is a better unit for Geo Claymore. She's good. Personality wise, he's great though. Diona, eventually, especially with Fontaine, we have better options. So I have a C6 double crown Diona right now. She's power corrupt. That doesn't mean she wasn't excellent. Diona was an excellent unit for a long time. Freeze teams. She's very flexible. And she does basically everything but damage. You know, cryo application, healing, shielding, energy positive, elemental mastery boost at C6. Really good unit. She doesn't have a team anymore. It's like you could just use Fiorina in that slot and bring some role consolidation elsewhere, like any number of these healers, and it would do more damage. Zhongli. If you're a new player, one of the best pulls you can make. Still viable in Abyss. People use him to this day. Huge comfort pick. He makes the game much, much easier. I would highly recommend him to a young account. Very good at supporting hyper carries and protecting them. Good with Hu Tao, good with Arlecchino, good with Neuvillette, all of which are prone to getting knocked back. He can support basically any DPS if you're fighting against real heavy knockback enemies. His shield makes the game kind of easy mode. Zhongli is excellent. Xinyan, useless. Forge Star, split scaler, could be a main DPS, but she's Pyro and a 4-star, and physical. Makes no sense. Could be a shielder. You have better options. You literally have Toma, which is just a better shielder. And since she split scales, you can't build her. She do both. So, yeah. She's never been good. I've tried. I can't make her good. Albedo's power corrupt at this point. He's not bad. I can't recommend pulling him. I think Chidori is just... Chiori is basically better Albedo. One of his best weapons is an old event weapon you can't get. He doesn't have a team anymore. He was basically good for Hu Tao teams until Kazuha came out. Like, once you have Kaza, Yelan, there's no room for Albedo. Do think he's a really cool character, like him a lot. Very lore important. But yeah. Ganyu. She's still excellent. If you have her, you should use her. Burst, amazing AoE cryo application. Incredibly strong charge shot. That said, her DPS is just simply not as good. Ayaka does more damage if you're playing freeze. I know Melt Ganyu can do really, really crazy stuff at high levels of investment. And if we use burning, it can be nuts. But you need crazy high investment to make it work. That's not practical. So I can't really recommend pulling her, but if you have her, you should build her. She's great. Xiao is a hyper carry. One of the first hyper carries. You gotta get Xinye. You gotta get C6 Farazan. And then, I don't know, Bennett or Fiorina. Like, it's really, really specific to make Xiao good. In other situations, without those specific buffs, he just does not do enough damage. So that said, if you pull Xiao, you are committed to pulling Shenye. You're committing to getting a C6 Farazan. And probably you're going to want to use your Fiorina with him. So you got to think he's going to soak up a ton of your investment. And I'm not sure he's worth the return. That said, once you're committed, go for it. He'll be good. Hu Tao. I love my Hu Tao. She's a hyper carry. Similar to Xiao, you're going to want Hu Tao supports. Zhongli is great. Xingqiu is great. Yelan is great. Kazuha is great. Fiorina is great. Some combination of those. Her weapon is amazing. Staff of Homa is busted. Her C1's very good. I like Hu Tao a lot. I can't say I'd totally recommend pulling for her in general, but if you have her and you invest in her, the results will be great. Rosaria. She's very similar to Kaya in terms of power level. I think she's easier to use. That's why I'm putting her here. Cryo sub DPS. I think the difference is she doesn't require C6. And you can play Circle Impact instead of Melee Impact. So she's more flexible. So she's slightly better than Kaya. So she can be excellent. Her damage is good. Her cryo application is great. Like, there's positive things to say about her, but I want to put her super high on my priority list, but if you use her, you'll be grateful. Yanfei, Power Corrupt, on-field Pyro DPS. She's actually quite good at it. A C6 Yanfei is pretty powerful. She'll do more damage than Diluc or Klee. Like, something to remember, C6 4-stars are basically 5-stars, right? With constellations, if they're balanced well. Yanfei is that. She's good. She's definitely good. That said, you'd rather have Hu Tao. And she's going to use up a lot of the same supports. Eula is just not viable. I'm sorry. I want her to be good too. I would pull Eula if she was good. But unless you're in whale territory, in which case she's insane. You'd have to... She's a hyper carry, build a whole team around her, and the results would not be great. I mean, it's enough where I think... I heard her best DPS is... Her best build is a hyper moon driver, like Nahida, Kuki, Xingqiu. Not even playing physical. So, yeah. It's kind of sad. Kazuha is amazing. Grouping, energy positive, team-wide buff. Buffs the damage of any element you swirl. He's like giving your main DPS a 6th artifact. He's really good. I think that he put Sucrose out of business. And again, that's not because Sucrose isn't good, but oh my god, Kazuha is amazing. One of the best units in the game, continues to be one of the best units in the game. Definitely a great pull. Moving forward, we have Ayaka. The meta does not favor Ayaka right now. So I could almost put her here or here. I'm going to put her here. Her damage is actually incredible. She's a very powerful unit. The problem is freeze is not in meta. Right? When fighting large groups of units, like pair with Venti or Kazuha in multi-wave content and She just erases the entire field. So she's very, very, very strong. It's just, again, single target unfreezable bosses, which has been the Abyss meta. She's not any good in that particular case. Also, you really want to run her with Kazuha, Kokomi Mona. You can run her with Diona or Rosario or Ganyu, or preferably Shenhe. But you're kind of committed to building an Ayaka team if you have Ayaka. I love Yoimiya personally. I love playing my Yoimiya. I'm very glad I have her on my account. Hu Tao is just better. I think she's quite good at, especially taking down ranged or flying enemies. Yes, of course, but Hu Tao just does more damage. It's too bad. I think Yoimiya has one of the best characters in the game. I think she's an incredible personality. I really like her playstyle. I think she's great in every way except her numbers aren't big enough. The fact that she's single target also really holds her back. Sayu, great in the overworld. And Abyss, barely viable. She's like worse Jean. Not a bad unit, of course. I actually really like her, but her power level is quite low. Love having Sayu on a team. Love playing Sayu. Raiden is completely busted to this day. She is excellent. Buffs all your bursts. Amazing with Benny Shellwing. Really high personal damage. Great electro application. Fulfills your team's energy bars. Even at C0, she's powerful. At C2, she's really strong. Does have a very high investment floor, I think, is her only downside. Love Raiden. I think she's excellent. Specialist. Kujosara. Needs C6. Raiden hyper carry team. She does well there. Not great anywhere else. However, why not Yelan? You'll probably do better. I think for sub DPS, you always think, why not Yelan? So. Kokomi. Not incredible power level. Incredible flexibility. She heals. She drives. She tanks. She has great hider application. She's incredible in freeze teams. She's incredible in bloom teams. She's incredible in taser teams. Kokomi really impacts your account greatly. I think people have slept on the unit for a long time because of her low personal damage, and that hasn't changed. But outside of personal damage, she's amazing in all other dimensions. Also incredibly cheap to build. Just need some HP and some ER. The rest of her stats literally don't matter. So, I like Kokomi. Even when I got her, I was like, yeah, she'll be good. No, she's great. I love using her. So, I think even now she's still underrated. Useless. She's like just a cryo nuke. She's worse Chong Yun. Like Aloy is just worst unit in the game, or among them. I can't find a way to make her good. In every situation you'd rather use Chong Yun, and in every situation you use Chong Yun, you'd rather use someone else, probably Yelan. So, yeah. Toma has a specific version build that I guess is good. Maybe there's a Toma Emily team out there that's good. I haven't seen it. I'm not convinced he's worth building. The idea of making him a Virgin Toma, you have to have everything really specific for that to be worth it. mean, if you're gonna run Bernie, you could just run Melt, can you? Uh, you could run Reverse Melt Rosaria. There's so many other things you could be doing with that slot. I'm not convinced he's worth the slot. Goro, defense scaling Geo characters. If you're supporting Noel or Ito, or even, quite honestly, even like a Ningguang, Goro can be amazing in those situations. Really high impact. The problem is the unit he supports are power crept. So the team is no longer viable. But it's not because of Goro. So I can't put him in a power crept situation because it's the other units in his teams that are power crept. Shenhe. She's Ayaka's personal support. She's great at it. That's all she does. So if you need to support your Ayaka team, you'd pull Shenhe. It's the only reason you'd pull her. Yunjin. She supports normal attackers. If someone's normal attacking that much, with the exception of Noel teams, you'd probably rather have Yelan, but she's still pretty good at what she does. I think the unit's completely viable. Yaimiko. I still kind of see her as a 5-star official. She takes up more field time and she's energy hungry, but you get a really big nuke out of it. I've never been convinced personally she's superior to Fischl, but she has a higher use rate than Fischl, and I think that's because when you pull her, you like her and you want to use her. That's my guess. I don't know. I think, though, she is pretty strong. Excellent unit if you want her, pull her. Ayato. Hydro Driver. Again, he's good. He's very good at what he does. Good with Yunjin. If you need a Hydro Driver for whatever reason, Ayato's fine, but I don't think he's strong enough. I'd recommend pulling him. You'd rather have one of the people at the top for sure, not the same pull value. Yelan is incredible. Easily S tier. Best sub DPS in the game. Still works with many different units. Does a lot of personal damage. Buffs your team damage. Generates a good amount of energy, especially if you get her constellations. Has an incredible personal weapon. Highly flexible. Great with Alhaitham. Great with Raiden. Great with any pyro DPS. She's just great. I'd have a hard time convincing anyone not to pull for her. She's amazing. I have Kuki Shinobu as a Hyper Bloom trigger. If you're playing Hyper Bloom, you should use her. I am not convinced she's this good, but she's very good at that one specific thing. Maybe I put her in Specialist, but she would be at the left side. I think she's really strong in that situation. Hazo, Animo Driver, super fun to play, totally power crap. Take a Hazo team, put in any other driver. You could put in Ayato, you could put in Child, you could put in Kaching, and it'll just do better. Tignari, he's good. I think he's power crept. I think you'd rather have Alhaitham. Good unit, though. Reminder that power crept units are not necessarily bad. Some of them are. But they just you're going to have better uses. Kale, slightly worse Dendro Traveler. She has a longer ICD, and her skill animation locks her, which I actually think is really annoying. Fine unit overall. Rather have Dendro Traveler. Dory, I think, is terrible. Can't find a way to make this unit work. Not enough of electro application. Not enough damage. Not enough healing. Not enough energy gen. She's just bad. I think she's actually really bad. She's my pick for worst unit in the game. But that's more because I'm so disappointed. Aloy is probably objectively the worst. Sino, just power crap from day one. Need to run in with Xingqiu, Yelan, and Nahida. And I could run any number of units in that setup. I could run Raiden, Hyperbloom, Florin, I could run Kaching. They'd all be easier to pilot and have similar results. I don't think Candace is useless. I think Candace has no situation. She doesn't have a team where she functions. Hydro Infusion plus the buff is kind of a cool idea. Yeah, I don't think she's that great. Nilu's a specialist. Her Bountiful Bloom core is very easy to access power level wise. Very low investment, high return. That said, I think that there are just stronger teams out there. I've been playing my Nilu team recently, but, you know, still Raiden National does better damage. Nouvelette does better damage. It's not bad. It just takes some time for the damage to come out. That said, in most content, she's actually quite good. Nahida, I'm not certain in saying this, but I can make a case she's the strongest unit in the game. Very easy to build. Only needs elemental mastery. Good free-to-play options. I have her signature, but Nahida power level is through the roof. She's the best ender unit by far. She buffs your team's reaction in EM. Like, this unit is completely insane. She's a complete game changer. I think it's as close to, like, I definitely pull Nahida. You will not be disappointed. She's astonishingly powerful. Layla, Cryo Shielder. She's very similar to Diona, but she does less things. Slightly better damage. But not enough that you care. So she's like worse Diona. Wanderer. He's a hyper carry. You gotta get C6 Ferris on. Probably gonna use Farina. You hear a theme here. Otherwise, he's not worth having. Not that I don't like his playstyle or his personality. It's just, you have to have a really specific setup for him to thrive. And even then, I mean, the problem with someone like Wanderer or Shao is, like, at that point, you put so much into him, Riding National might just be better anyway. That's the problem. Farazan, specialist. If you're playing Wanderer or Shao, she's amazing. If you're not playing Wanderer or Shao, she's useless. You need a C6. You need a lot of energy recharge. Like, it's a very significant investment to get her where she needs to be. Alhaitham. Dendro Driver, I'm putting him in hyper carry. He's great. I don't have him personally. Spread, Aggravate, Hyperbloom. Excellent unit, though, by all accounts. Moving on. Yao Yao. I think she's just good. I like her. Good Dendro application. Good healing. 4-star. Very viable. Simple, easy to use. Like Yao Yao. Um, Dea. Mihoyo Borcher. Cool concept. Cool design. Really like the character. Takes up far too much field time for not enough damage. Mika. Attack speed cryo application. Boost physical and cryo damage. Supposed to be Eula's support. Eula's not very good. I think his best application now is to heal with Furina teams, but you might as well have Jean or Charlotte. Baiju. I haven't pulled him. I think he's excellent. The stats show that he could be great. I'm not that impressed with his kit or his damage output or his healing or his shielding or anything. That's why he's not up there. But he is one of the most used units in the game and has some great teams. So he's might be in the great pull category. Kave. I'm playing my Kave right now, C6 Kave. He's good. There are better options. I think what you do is you just have like a Kokomi as a driver or pick another driver that just does more damage. Even in his perfect situation, there are probably better situations. Kirara, Dendro Shield. Super cute mechanic. Love the character. Not very good in combat. If her shield does anything and her burst is up reasonable, she does no damage. If she does any damage, her shield doesn't do anything. So, yeah. I think Lenny is good. He's got to be in a mono pyro team. It's really specific. I wouldn't pull him. But if you like him and you pull him, you can make him work. He's good. Lynette. Animo sub DPS without the grouping. Like, why not just play Kazuha? Why not just play Sucrose? Why not just play Venti? They will all do her job better. Fremine. I don't think he's bad. He's a physical cryo hybrid. Fun to play. I like the character. I like the kit. The numbers just aren't big enough. So, Powercraft. New Valette is amazing. Very high damage. Very easy to build. Very easy to use. Good team flexibility. Easily S tier. You should definitely pull for New Valette. He doesn't work well with Elon Shincho. And he takes up field time, so he can't play really with Raiden, but he's great in Furina teams, Mono Hydra teams, Free teams, Bloom teams. He's just great. Risley, freeze DPS, uses Fontaine mechanics. I'd rather have Ayaka. I don't think he's bad. I'd rather have Ayaka. Furina is incredible. Relatively easy to build. Amazing Hydra application. Amazing buffs. High flexibility. Useful in many cases. You've heard me mention teams with Furina here. Incredible sub DPS support. One of the best units in the game. You can make a case that I think Furina, New Valette, and Nahida are the three strongest units out there right now. I highly recommend pulling all three. I think they are so good. I use Charlotte as a healer for my Furina teams. She's excellent. Even at C0, full party healing, cryo application, Furina with New Valette, Charlotte, Kazuha, she can apply freeze. Make it easier for New Valette and even easier for him to cleave. help protect him a bit. Like, Charlotte's objectively great. I really like her. It's nice to see them put out new 4-stars that are good. Uh, Navia, also, she's great. I didn't pull for her. I don't think Chio's in a great spot, but I know you can play Navia, Chiori, and then like Bennett Chongling or Farina Yelan. You pay your player in these special 2-2 duo element comps. She's good. She's definitely good. Very fun character. Love her personality. Not a top tier team though. Very good team, not top. Chevreuse. She's a specialist. She makes Overload stronger, but also I think you can just play Yelan and get better results. Putting her in a specialist, but I also think she's power crept. Like a C6 Chevreuse is not as good as a C0 Yelan, and I think that has more to do with how strong Yelan is. Shenye buffs plunging attacks. Great with Xiao, can be great with Diluc, can be great with Furina. Furina, Xiao, Farazan, best team. If you love Xiao, you gotta pull her. I wouldn't pull her otherwise. Ganming, really fun playstyle. I don't think it's viable. I like him. They tried something different. It's cool. You play a little mini game. It's like the Draven of Genshin. The numbers just aren't big enough. He doesn't work as well with, your vape team of Yelan Xingqiu. Like, cool idea, not strong enough. Chiori, Chio sub DPS, basically, Navia's support. I think these two go together. I wouldn't pull one without planning on pulling the other right now. Chiori is just better albedo. Like, significantly. In terms of combat power, raw combat strengths, Arlecchino might be the best in the game. That said, she requires a specific setup. I'm guessing it's Yelan Xingqiu Bennett. Probably more flexible. She's flexible in her rotations. I think she has higher damage than Hu Tao when properly built and used. A complex character, though, especially managing your bond of life. She's very squishy, so you might want to play her with Benny Zhongling, just because you get smacked at the wrong time and you die. That said, her combat power is really, really amazing. So, if you like her, you should pull her. I didn't pull her because I have a really well invested Hu Tao. I don't think you would take one or the other, not both. But, I mean, Arlecchino's great, but you do have to build a team around her. She needs a lot of support. Chlorine. Chlorine's excellent. I think of her as slightly better Kaching. She's fun to play. Her story quest was great. But yeah. I don't have a lot else to say about her. Aggravate DPS, really good one. Siegewin, full party healer, slightly better for Farina teams. She's great. It's like if I ran Siegewin instead of Charlotte, my Furina, Nuvolette, Mino Hydra would be slightly better. Slightly. She's not strong enough to justify pulling, in my opinion. Very, very cute. Love her character. But we're talking strength here. Sethos. He has a variety of different playstyles. Really cool idea. I don't think he's viable. If you're going to do all that, you'd have to be a 5-star. I think that it's just not strong enough to justify. He's not really power crept because he's his own thing, but the numbers aren't big enough. 4 newest units. Emily. Her teams feel like they're missing something. She's probably going to end up being in the excellent unit category. But she could be really good. She could go into a specialist category too. You know what, honestly, she's a specialist. I don't know how good she is. I think you have to pull another unit later. I don't know what that is. This is Muhani? Muhani? I have no idea if she's good or not. Looks fun. The shark taxi looks cool. I know she's a 5-star. She'll probably be excellent. I don't have really high or low expectations for her. I can't even remember this guy's name. They call him Natlan Shao. We'll call him Natlan Shao again. His playstyle looks really cool and fun. I bet he's really fun to play. I have no idea if he's good. I don't know. I don't even know how I would know. Kuchina, she's a 4-star, like sub DPS that takes some field time. She's probably power crept on release. Again, I think she's cute. I think she's interesting. I know she'll play a role in the story. And it's rare for them to make a powerful 4-star. If you look at our really powerful 4-stars here, big 5, right? Benny, Xiangling, Xingqiu, amazing units. Units almost as good, come up close, not quite, are Sucrose and Fischl. Amazing units too. Other 4-stars that here I put up there, I think Beto, Rosaria are situationally good. And Charlotte, Yao Yao are also situationally good, but they're also healers. And the Beto requires a lot of investment. So there aren't that many amazing 4-star units in the game. The units that are like specialist 4-stars can be great in their situation. But generally, 4-stars can't be main DPS. 4-stars can't take a block with a field time. They just don't do enough damage. Number's too small. Anyway, this is my Genshin pull value tier list. I have not ordered the tiers really. Especially in the top tier, the 8 units up there that are 5-stars. Raiden, Zhongli, Kazuha, Kokomi, Yelan, Nahida, Nuvolette, and Furina are all amazing pulls. I can recommend them to anyone. People say Hydra is the strongest element in the game. These 4 Hydra units are astoundingly good. The rest, and then a lot of it has to do with what you like and what you have as you build out your account. There's many ways to do it. I build a couple good teams. I'm using an Abyss. I still use Nuvolette or Raiden all the time. Use Hu Tao all the time. This rotation didn't suit her. Those are my teams. There could be other teams that work. Anyway, that's the end of the video. Good luck on your polls. I'd wait till Natlan comes out to get the better poll value. Better pity system. You should definitely wait. And then good luck. Hopefully that was helpful. I will catch you all soon.